Good morning, everybody. I have no idea why my computer is deciding to not show one of my displays. So
Good morning, everybody. I have no idea why my computer is deciding to not show one of my displays.
There we go. Is it working now? Because it was working right before I went live. Okay, I think it's working. Back to what I was doing. Sorry, good morning, everybody. My name is Samantha Mirabal with Melco's application team, and let me quick check both feeds and make sure they are up. Yes, so it looks like Facebook is up. YouTube, what is YouTube doing? I don't know what YouTube is doing. Let's see. YouTube's playing me commercials. Okay, I'm gonna close YouTube. All right, well, good morning. Again, my name is Samantha Mirabal. I'm doing our DesignShop Talk today. See what questions you might have. While we're live, if you see me looking off to the side, I've got a secondary monitor up that I can see the chats and other things, so feel free to type in there. And I'll start off with the questions that were sent in ahead of time, and then we'll jump over to anything that comes in live. Again, we should be live on both platforms. YouTube was being silly when I went there. Let me try it one more time and see what it's doing. It looks like it's live on YouTube too. Excellent. Okay, so I'm going to close all that and just keep the chats up. Awesome. All right, so I'll go ahead and get started. I did with some of the questions that were sent in ahead of time, and if you have them, type them in on the lives. Don't send them privately. I don't see those while we're live. All right, so is there a quick way to reverse the entry and exit points on an object? So absolutely. So anytime you've got a shape, like let's say this pear right here, the green circle is the start, the red X is the end of where, and what does that mean? The green circle is you're telling it where you want to start sewing on that particular element, and the red X is where you're telling it to end. Well, you can drag those around. Okay, so I can drag the circle around and drag the X around. Now, sometimes depending on where that's located right over one of those other elements, sometimes it'll be annoying to grab one of the two. So what can you do instead of dragging things around? All right, well, if you just want to be a little bit quicker about it, anytime you want to edit a shape, you select the shape first, and then right here, these four buttons are kind of how I look at it editing, right? You can add holes, you can add splices. This one here is insert entry and exit points. So if I click on that, down at the bottom here, it will give you clues about what it's looking for. So you can see input entry point. So your first click is going to be the start, your second click is going to be the end. But anytime if you're confused, look down here and see it's got another prompt. In addition to, you see my arrow, my pointer has a circle and an X floating off to the bottom right of it. That's another visual cue of what's going on here, that it's expecting a start and stop. All right, so click 1 is going to be my start point. Click 2 is my stop point. So if I select that element, you'll see where I clicked. Again, I can select the element, tell it here to start, there to end. Okay, so you can change it however you want to do that. Okay, giving it a start and stop, and that works for anything, right? So if the start's there, the stop's there, I can select and tell it start and stop in the middle. Is that going to work for this design? Yes or no? Who knows? You got to think through the planning on it. All right, so we have one typed in. How do I create a 3D puff image for hats? I have the materials, but what settings should I use in DesignShop if it's just text? All right, so puff designs have to be digitized for puff, because if you just take a basic text, so like TEXT. All right, so if I tried sewing this as puff, this font is not digitized to be suitable for puff, because the stitches right here turn it into 3D. So my stitches are running this way. I have no needle penetrations on this end to cap that off, so there's nothing to cut that puff. So fonts have to be digitized specifically for puff. All right, now there are ones built into the software under puff So there are ones that have specifically been done for puff, so you can do those. And those you can see have that under, the capping that you need to deal with it. So you can use any of the puff fonts. And if you go into properties, styles, you can tell it to be a puff alphabet, apply it to the project, and that will update any of the settings so that it's more appropriate for puff. Okay, so that's what I would do, is use one of the two puff fonts and make sure you're using the puff settings on it. So that way your underlays and your densities and all of that are appropriate for it. So again, type whatever you want, make sure it's under the puff fonts. In properties, under styles, you can tell it to use the puff alphabet and just apply it to the project. And there you go. Something is set up for it. All right. And good morning, Lorena. Thanks for joining. 28 degrees in Alaska. I bet that's starting to feel good. That sounds horrific to me. I was upset the other day when it was 60 degrees outside. So, Joseph, you said if a company image that would need to be okay, so if you've got a company image that you need to be puff, yes. So all puff designs, we've got some links for you in the comments here on digitizing for puff. Using puff is a simple thing to sew on the machine, but the files have to be done appropriately for it, because if you don't have enough needle penetrations, it's not going to cut the puff. Okay, if it's not pinched or capped, again, you're not going to have those needle penetrations along every edge to cut the puff, and then you're going to be left with this puff attached. That, now what? You get scissors and cut it, but then the stitches aren't going to look clean. So yes, any images in general have to be digitized for embroidery. Puff kind of adds a complexity to the digitizing, because not only do you have to have more stitches, you also have to think about capping things. Whereas if you're just sewing into fabric, you don't have to worry about that, because you're not trying to cut a material. So yeah, you would need to digitize the design specific for what you're doing. Okay, does that help at all, Joseph? All right, let's see. How do you make borders thick all the way around? Okay, so a border, say I've got a shape. All right, so it's just a complex fill. And now I want to add a border to it. How do you do that? I can select the shape. That's step one. Oh, my dog. Oh my goodness. Awesome. All right, so select the shape, hold the shift key, and then click on the single line center, and that will add a border. This width right here sets how wide or how thick that border is, okay? Meaning from one side to the other, how big is it? So if I measure this, that width, I can click on the measure tool, go from one stitch to the other, and you'll see it's 20 points from one side to the other. So that's how wide it is. So if you want a thicker, wider border, what do? Well, this number goes up, right? And that makes it a wider border for you. If you want it thinner, you make it go smaller. As with all things, it's not infinite, right? You can't make it 2 inches wide and expect it to sew well as a satin stitch, or make it 1 point narrow and expect it to sew as a satin stitch. It doesn't work that way. Satin stitches like this, I would say, with a border anywhere from, let's say, 15 points, maybe down to 12, but that's getting kind of narrow. Out on the small side, on the high end, no more than 70 points, and that's really getting pretty wide. So 60 is probably a better number to max out in on your satin stitches, if not smaller. So that gives you kind of a rough range, anywhere from, I'd say, 15 to 70. Keep in mind the outskirts, really narrow or really wide, are gonna, you want to think about that before you do it for the application. Okay, so that's making borders wider. If you did it as a, so pretend this is a border. So if you did it as a column, So this is a column stitch, which the difference between a single line and a column is a single line, like you have here, the width is constant all the way around. Okay. A column allows you to still get that nice, sweeping, pretty raised satin look with your stitches, but it's a variable. You can change the width to suit your needs. So it can be narrow, it can be wider, so you can have some variability along there. So that's always fun. So if you have a border like this and you want it to be wider, how do you fix it? Thicker. Well, you can move the points, right? So I can go individually move points around. That's a little bit tedious, but I can do it, right? Or if you liked where it was, let's say that was the perfect shape. I really don't want to mess with it. I just want it bolder. That's where this pull offset comes into play. I'm going to be a little bit ridiculous about it. So you can see the shape is wider. Should you put 10 points of offset on something? No. Two, I'll be honest, personally, I use up to 5. Is that a good practice? No. That's pretty sparingly. 1 to 3 max is usually the default. Honestly, if I'm going over 2, I start looking at it and seeing, should I just redigitize that, or am I going to continue to add offset? Okay. All right, what other questions did we have? I'm using DesignShop 10. When 12 comes out, can you upgrade to that, or will you have to pay to upgrade to 11 and the 12? No, so 12 isn't a thing at the moment. I don't believe, actually, I don't know. It might be, I don't know. We're at version 11 right now, and I know that people there's multiple upgrade paths from 9 to 11, 10 to 11, lettering to pro. There's all the different upgrade paths. So no, you're not going to have to go from 10 and then by 11 and then by 12. You can go from 10 to 12 whenever it's available. You just have to talk to your sales agent, because I know people were going from 9 to 11 as an example without buying 10 in between. I'm thinking of upgrading to version 11 from 9. What are the best upgrades to 11 and best editions? Oh goodness. So I believe there are some videos that Nate and Scott did that show kind of all the new features of 11. From 9 to 11, there's a lot of cool stuff. The decorative stitches are pretty darn amazing. So for instance, this border, instead of being a satin, I can change it to I don't have the border selected. Although, look at that, you can do cool pattern fills. You can do that in 9 as well, but there's a lot more patterns within 11, and man, they're cool. You also have the ability to do the faux marrow stitch. So where is that? It's under F, right? Helps if I actually like faux patch borders. What did I do? There we go. Oh, I have it set as a let's try this again. Line decorative faux patch. Here we go. So I can do faux patch borders like a faux marrow stitch. So that's always fun. There's the decorative fills. You can create your own decoratives. Can you tell I like decoratives a lot? There is also the primer stitch, which is really convenient for creating a whole lot of, I use it a lot. So I'll give you an example of it. If I take this design and select everything, say object, generate basting primer, a basting stitch is very helpful for if you're going to float a towel, for instance, to embroider on it. You don't want to hoop it, you just want to float it on your hoop, but you want it to hold still. Well, you can do a basting stitch around it, and that'll be right around your design, so when it sews, that's convenient. There's also this primer stitch, which will go around it and give you an underlay, kind of a global underlay, so that when if you're sewing on stockings or towels, things that have a lot of texture to it, where the design's gonna kind of wrap around your embroidery, the primer stitch is really easy to create something fast for any of your designs that you're doing. You can see I did that in two clicks and I'm done. Can you do that in 9 or 10 or 11 without the Pro? Yeah, it takes a lot longer, right? So the productivity enhancements are pretty amazing. The stitch engine's awesome. The 3D, how it shows stuff in 3D. There are so many cool features of it, especially going from 9 to 11. Actually, from 10 to 11 is awesome too, but it's even more drastic going from 9 to 11. We did get you a link to the features there, so you can check those out. There's a gazillion more fonts, and they're really cool. A lot of the fonts are updated. The script fonts with the little flourish. Anyway, there's a lot of cool stuff. I'm thinking of upgrading to version 11 for 9. What are the? Did we just talk about that? Oh, that's what we just did. Sorry. Someone asked when I can come look at their machine. This is applicable to pretty much anyone. If you're looking for a tech, check out the tech list and give them a call and schedule it through them by give them a ring and see when they can come out and look at your machine. So if it's under warranty, you can always call Melco and the service department will work with you. And if a tech is needed, they'll talk to you about that. Otherwise, you can always just look up the closest tech to you, give them a call, and see what their schedules are. And there's the certified Melco tech list in your in the comments there. How to merge purchased fonts. You've moved to sorry, before we get to that, someone typed in, I moved to a 4K computer. Now now that the other went proof. Do they make the icons in DS and OS so I can see them? They're so small, but I want them bigger. So within DesignShop, you can go into Tools options. I always have to look for them. Preference. Oh, it was right there. Now that I'm looking for them. There they are, icons. So Tools, Options, Preferences, you can change the icon sizes down here to be something different. And I can't handle them that large, but you can do that. We did also get you a link there for small icons on the 4K monitors, so you can look at that article. But yes, you can change them within DesignShop. You can also change Windows settings for scaling. Personally, that's what I do. But yeah, there's a few options for you there to check out. All right. Oh, merge purchase fonts. Let's do that. So in DesignShop, when you buy a font, let's go find one that I bought. Where's my stuff? My designs, things I've bought. Fonts. These are just fonts I purchased. So let's find. Who knows? Let's grab that one. So generally when you buy fonts, this is an applique font, whatever. So when you buy fonts, they usually come as a gazillion files, right? For each letter is shows up as a DST file, a JEF file, whatever format you purchased. So when you do that, you would, open your font, insert your letter, insert the next one. Where's an A? Oops. I don't like that A. I want that A. There we go. All right. So you can insert them individually. Insert. Let's go find an M, and then I'll show you some things we can do with it. Large, lowercase m. Where are you? Large. There's a lowercase m. All right. So I've got some lettering in here. Now, what can we do with it? Right here, I've got space evenly. So I can always, but check that out. So see how the A, it was actually two pieces, so it messed up. So let's undo that, and let's group that first. If you group them, then whenever you're doing these alignment activities, it'll move all as one item. So now, if I actually hit the group button. So to group it, you select them both. So I'm just going to select that letter. And right here is my group button. So now anytime I select that, both elements select as once, and I don't have to worry about selecting them both. So from here, I can then use the alignment to line at center. I can evenly space them. I can align them along the bottom. along the top. So you've got these different things to help you with alignments, right? And if the even spacing doesn't work for you, you can always move them around after that, holding your control key to lock the position. So if I hold the shift, when I go to move it, shift and click, shift control click. So those are keyboard commands. So shift, you can see it's moving really small increments. Shift and control are large increments. All right. So that's, you just insert your letters one at a time until you get them where you want them and move them around. Okay, what other questions do we have? Those were all the ones that were sent in ahead of time. Do you guys have anything else? I'm going to quick scan through and see if I missed any in the comments. Excuse me. Looks like I got everything in the comments. So, any other questions? If not, I'm going to call it a day. I'm going to go do some sewing, some digitizing. Oh, a while back you showed us how to make a fancy fill stitch. Yeah, fancy fill stitches are fun. So, when you're making your own fill patterns, they're decoratives. Okay, so let's see. I've got, let me close the bird so I don't accidentally overwrite it, like this one. So these are ones that are pre-done in the software, but for instance, where's my horsey? So like the horse is one I've made. Okay, so how do you do that? Let me go grab the horse. I saved that original file. DS library, decoratives, horse, there. Okay, so that's what I actually drew. All right, so what you would do is create whatever design that you want, right? So this is a single element, and you're going to draw whatever you want repeated. This one was originally intended to be used as a walk input. So it would just be like a quilting pattern. I was using it for quilting bags is what I originally designed it for. So when you're creating decoratives, what's important? That your start and your stop be on the same line. Meaning, if I move this down to a crosshair, notice my start and my stop are all on that same, they're in line with each other. That's the most important part. So you can take your walk and you can draw whatever you want, right? And if you make sure it starts and stops on the same thing, that pattern is what you would create as your repeat. So for this horse, how you save it off, or once you draw whatever it is you want to draw, whether it's one element, a bunch of elements, in this case it was just a continuous walking stitch, making sure your start and stop are on the same plane, you'd right click, save custom shape, tell it to be a decorative and give it a name. I always recommend saving it as test, and you'll notice its file already exists. Replace it, yes. Why? Because I'll make one, I'll look at how it looks and go, oh, I want to tweak this, or I want to change that, or I need to move my start and stop so that, or make a line a little bit longer to drag the things further apart. So don't you dare bark at me. Someone's at my door. So anyway, I always save it as test, and then I can come up here and go, okay, let's try it. Decorative, go find test. Oops, it helps if I actually select it as test, huh? There. And then I can look at how it moves, whether I need to change things, whatever, and go from there. But yeah, you can create, you know, it's whatever your imagination is for these decoratives. If you look at some of the ones that were created under decorative stitches, it takes a hot minute to load because there's a bunch of them, but all of these are the individual elements that were digitized to create the different decorative patterns. You can see I did a Christmas tree at one point for that same quilting. Flower I wanted to repeat, so those are ones I've made over time. But you can see there's a whole bunch in here. Oh, I did a lace edge. I forgot about that one. Did that a long time ago. So these are all just different ones that come with the software. Mine show ones that I've done as well. But you can create your own, save it as right click, save custom shape, set it to be a decorative, and then you can use it in any of those decoratives. So whether it's as a decorative fill like this, or a decorative line like that. Okay. What other questions do you have? I brought a design into DesignShop and it had a ton of trims that weren't in the original design. I unchecked them, but when okay. I know someone is at the door. That's really bothering you. Let me go put him out of this room. I'm sorry. Out. No. I am very sorry. He's really upset that someone's at the door and I'm not going to get it. Had a lot of trims not in the original design. Okay, so here's the thing with the trims. When you add Rio, I'm not sure if you guys can hear him. I hope you can't. When you open a design, it's going to have it's going to convert over from whatever format it was. So if you keep on saving it as a DST or an EXP, that will continue, right? So you're going to want, can you hear him? Because he's distracting me. All right. Hopefully you can't hear him. It's really awful. I'm sorry. All right, so let's see. I'm going to go open a design. Let's see if I can find one that has those trims. I don't think I have one. Oh, I know where one is. Let's see. It's under my... I have designs everywhere. That's part of my problem. I'm going to go to Dropbox. Melco. Where's Melco? Melco. There you are. Training. Teaching examples. How did this? Oh, this one. Okay, so here's one. Depending on what settings you have, some like here, there's trim. These are not trims right now; they're jumps. Okay, so when you look at things, just deleting these trims isn't necessarily, depending on how the design was, going to fix it, right? So you can add color changes that will add trims. If you want to get rid of trims, again, deleting them, you're going to have to change settings. So when you say you brought it into DesignShop, was it an OFM that you brought in, or what type of file was? Because depending on what it was is going to kind of direct how I tell you to fix it. Because some of the settings are in the, for instance here, notice there's no trim there, there's no trim there. If I want a trim, that's in these settings under my tie-ins and tie-offs. These numbers here are what drive it. So if it's trimming and you don't want it to trim, then you're going to have to deal with it through here. So you brought in a PES file, which is an expanded, similar to what's here. So those, it saves the trim information in it. So whatever you do when you go to fix it, you're going to want to save it as an OFM and not as a PES, because anything you do to it, if you save it back as a PES, it's going to put them all back. All right. So when you open it up, whatever it might be, like if I want to add a trim here or remove a trim, whichever it would be, in this case, I want to delete one. I can come in, add a stitch point, insert my trim, and then I put it in the wrong spot. I'm going to move it up. Okay, so you can see it's trimming it out now. So at that point, I can delete the extra stitch, and there's a trim now in there. So that's a manually added trim, right? So it really, if you have an example file that you can post on one of our question things, I can look at it and help a little bit more. But it's really dependent on how it's opening as to how you're going to fix it. It's probably not a very helpful answer, but it really is kind of it depends. So saving it as OFM, any changes you make, that's the only way it's going to keep the changes. All right. What other questions do we have? All right, I don't see any others yet. All right. I usually don't bring it up on Fridays. All right, y'all. Well, I hope you guys have a fantastic week. Sorry about my noisy animal. It's really upset about the front door. I will be back next week if you've got questions. Denise, if you can either email applications@melco.com with the design, a picture of the design or something like that. Or you can post it for next week, a picture of it, and I can take a look at it and give you some more exact help. Yeah. All right. Until then, you guys have a fantastic weekend, and I will talk to you next week. Bye, everyone.